And I got a little something set up over here, a little something something. I normally do use this. Why I haven't been, it's beyond me. It's a Lazy Susan, screwed down to one of my modeling boards. And what this does, this makes doing all of this work go so much smoother and swimmingly. At any rate, we've got a little bit of water in a bowl, and to this water we're going to add plaster. Always add plaster to the water, never the other way around. Why? Because this is the way it's done. That's why. Okay? That's the way it's done. I use an old butter knife for mixing. And real simple, just take some regular good old plaster of Paris. I used to use molding plaster, but that's, for some reason, it's getting harder to find, and you have to order it like practically by the skid. This stuff here, I can buy in these little DAP containers here, and I can buy it by the 5 and 10 pound bag. So, and I just use a little aluminum scoop to plop the plaster into my water. And after I mix this up, I'll be donning a pair of nitrile gloves, because plaster will dry the skin, and it always dries my skin out, and it makes it ridiculous. I hate when my skin gets this dry, especially in this shop. It's cool in here, and it always just dries my skin out. Plus, I'm working with all the alcohol before with the Dawn soap in it. Just made it ridiculously dry. And the plaster just sucks all the moisture out of your hide. And I'm not one of those guys that uses, what do you call, body conditioner and stuff like that. Yeah, right. You know what I mean. Soap and water. I'm a soap and water guy. And I just keep adding plaster until I have a good thick base here. I need it thick enough to create vertical surfaces. Alright. Yeah, I want it to be as creamy as possible, but I'm not worried about it, as this is a support mold and not like I'm using the plaster. If I was making a direct mold with plaster, I would use an electric mixer to beat this and make it really, really smooth. But I'm not too concerned about that. A lot of guys use plaster bandages. I thought about using them. I don't have any in the shop at this time, and I don't want to wait until they come in. By the way, you can also get those at Brick in the Yard Supply, Molding Supply. They sell real good ones. They have a real good plaster content. But like I say, this is just going to be a quick mold. And the way I'm going to do it, it's going to be in a left half and a right half. But we're not going to go over the top of the horn buds. In fact, I'm going to mark where the line is going to be set for this on here. The marker right here. And I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay. I'm simply going to run the mold down the center at the front and at the rear of the mold, like so. Okay. Cut it in half basically, that way. All right. But I'm also going to go around the horn buds like so. Okay. I'm going to go around the horn like so with the plaster. All I need really is to support this half and the other half, and that's it. After I get the skull out of here, I may go ahead Well, I will be capping off these openings because these are just going to be little holes here. Those will get capped off. And then what I'm going to do is plug them with some more of this same silicone so it won't leak out when I create my casting. Now I'm just going to go ahead and start, I was going to say plopping this on, but I just kind of plopped it on the board. I'm not worried about being real neat right now. I'll neaten it up later. Right now, I just want to cover this thing. And unlike the silicone, if I mixed up too much plaster, then I mixed up too much plaster. I don't worry about the plaster too much. I do want a good, thick coating. I want a good, thick, full-bodied support jacket. I'll try and keep it even all the way around. Like so. And this is why I like using a butter knife to spread it. Spread like butter. This is a real thick consistency. And this is as thick as I like to make it. Put on upright, you know, to contain upright vertical surfaces and whatnot, and just hold itself in place. I don't use any reinforcement in this. Like I say, this is essentially a waste mold. I know my buddy Travis doesn't like when I say, oh, this is a waste mold. He's like, whoa, you can get many castings out of it. I'm like, I know, I realize that. But because I have access to commercial, really good commercial silicone products here, I don't worry too much about this is the only mold I'm going to have. I like to try and look at things from a market point of view or a marketing point of view. You know, if I can make a few bucks off of a piece, that's cool too. If not, well then at least I've got a nice little skull and set of horns to use on a couple of Klipspringer mounts I want to make. Go right down the line and just cut the plaster away like so. And then I will add to it as the plaster thickens up some more. I will reinforce this with another layer. As it thickens, I'm not going to mix up another batch. As this batch thickens, I will use it over and over. So I only need it to go up so high around the base of the horns here. That's all I'm doing. That's all I'm concerned myself with right now. You can see where the Lazy Susan comes in handy. And this is good for us guys who have got lousy backs, like myself. We don't have to twist and contort ourselves, really. If we can avoid it, so much the better. Now the nice thing is, the soap and alcohol solution that was used to smooth this, leaves a residue behind, which makes a nice separator. Like so, okay? And this is going to be real nice in helping the plaster to come away from here. Like so. Okay. And I'm just going to keep modeling this in place and modeling this in place. So far I haven't had to put my hands into it, which is kind of nice. But I know eventually I probably will. Maybe I won't. I don't know. Maybe I won't. Use the knife as my modeling tool in this respect. It's just like icing a cake. A big plaster cake. Alright. For all the cake lovers out there, you know, get your hot out. And I do want to make it as neat along the bottom. I want a good bottom edge. So I want to make it as neat along the bottom as I possibly can. I like to keep it smooth. It's even with the clay as I can make it. That's coming along nice. That's nice and thick right there. That's a good thickness, especially on the sides. You really want it thick on the sides. You want to give this silicone a lot of support on the outside here. Now I'll take the flat end of this and use it to kind of draw along and make sure my bottom line of my plaster jacket is nice and neat. Right? Keep bringing it up and up like so. Voila, there we go. There we are. Now, I'm going to come along here and go down the center, cut this away, and work it away. And that excess plaster that's on the silicone there will be cleaned off. That will be cleaned away. And I want this line here. Now this is where the gloves come in handy, right here. See, I've got it in my hand. I'm using it right now like a putty. Now I'm going to take it up to the top and thicken this a bit. All right. I thicken that. I have a spray bottle here with some water in it somewhere. I don't know where the heck it is. Oh well. No big deal. Just come along and just prepare the knife nice and clean and press down here and straighten this nice and neat. Like I said about the cat mold, make this neat and pretty. Neat and pretty. And for all of us old enough to remember the Mickey Mouse Club, Mickey always used to ask the kids, "Everybody neat and pretty?" The kids used to reply, "Neat and pretty, Mickey." And that's enough of that. Yeah, I'm old. What can I say? Now, we'll trim this back a little more down the center line here that I drew. And get this nice and neat. Add that there. Turn it over at the flat side against the silicone and whatnot. Come down to the bottom. Is it important for this to be neat and straight? Yes. Why? Because the second half of the mold is going to overlap this ever so slightly. And we want a good, not so much a locking point, but I want a good area of contact made here. All right. And like I said, it's just starting to dry out now. That's good. And see what the stainless steel butter knife does, how it just smooths this so nice. You wouldn't get this with a wood modeling tool. You wouldn't get this with a plastic scraper of any kind. Oh, maybe you could. I firmly believe that the stainless steel knife is a really superb tool for smoothing and whatnot. I've been making plaster molds for quite some time, so I've got some experience as far as that's concerned. Whether they be of carcass, to make carcass molds, or what have you. Working with plaster, I go way back working with plaster. And the serrated edge of this works the same as a modeling tool. And then you use the flat edge to smooth it out. You even it all up, beef this up here. Okay. Now this stuff is just about set. I want to add some more down here. It's a little thin down at the front. So I'm going to take some of this plaster here. I'm going to roll it between my hands and I'm going to apply it to the front here. I want a good thick foot down at the front. I want it good and thick down in front. Like so. And I'll blend this to the existing support jacket. Make sure she's straight across the bottom. That's important. That'll be important for later when the bottom side of the mold is made. You don't want any overlap where it's hanging down and interfering with the second part of the mold to be made. And now the final slice down the front. And you can see now the thickness is uniform going down the front all the way up. And I'm just smoothing this, and what the smoothing does, you see all those little air pockets and whatnot in the plaster? Well, this tightens those up. This tightens it up. Clean off the tip of the knife, and now use the knife again, like so. And do the same thing at the back here. I'm going to straighten this out again at the back, cut a little more away. Now it's real firm back here. It's real nice. And I simply use the knife to smooth this and close off the surface beautifully. There we go. Now she's starting to set. Okay, I went and let the plaster set overnight. I did clean up the plaster off the silicone. You can see it's been wiped away from here. Now, many things can be used as a separator for plaster. You can use paste wax. You can use soap. You can use dishwashing soap. You can use a clay slurry. Vaseline works well. And I like the Vaseline, one, because it's convenient, and two, as you apply it, it does not start soaking into the plaster the way some of the other things I mentioned would start soaking in. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get the facing upright wall of the plaster. I want to get this well coated, like so. Then I'm going to go in and almost a full length from my knuckle to the tip of my finger is what I'm going to use to cover this, because I don't see myself going any further over than that. I do want to make sure every bit where contact may be made is covered with Vaseline. I want a good separator. True, Vaseline is used for other things, but in mold making, it has even more purposes. Now this is a cure roll. And in mold making, like I say, it has lots and lots of good general purpose uses. And nothing really beats it as a separator. You know, separator for plaster on plaster, silicone on silicone. It's fantastic. Okay. That seam is completely covered and then some. I'm going to mix up another batch of plaster and start applying it. Okay, we got our plaster mixed up to a good thick consistency, as you see here. And I'm going to start applying it just like I did to the first side. I'm going to concentrate first on the bottom section here and build this lower half of the mold up, a lower portion of the mold I should say, before I go up to the part that's coated with Vaseline. Make sure I get it nice and thick so I don't have to go back to it later. Now, okay, the front's already beginning to join up a little bit, and that's fine. There's no hard and fast set rules about this. You simply apply it as you go. Make sure you just get it all in place. That's the main thing. Now we start bringing the plaster up to the middle. And when we go over, I don't know if you can see how shiny this is over here. That's where the Vaseline is. We do not want to go past that. But we want to build up a good layer of plaster along the seam. We want a good thickness of plaster here. Fill in any narrow spots, or any thin spots I should say. It's starting to firm up some. Cut that away like so, just like I did the first time. I want to make this as even as I possibly can, coming up the top here. Like so. Clean off the knife real well. Make it nice and even. Now where it's sagging here in front, we lift this. Just lift it up and work it towards the top. You don't want to take anything away at this point because you're building up a good thick lip. Same thing here. I'm going to come around to the rear portion where the overlap will be located. And even this up. Like so. Clean off the knife so that it doesn't stick to the plaster as much. Don't even this up here. Now we're gonna thicken this seam covering here all the way down to the bottom. Again, every time you clean the knife, it keeps it from sticking to the plaster as you apply more and more and more. And this needs to be made thicker here. You see how thin this is towards the back? Got to thicken that up. First thing I do is push the plaster against itself, like so. Now I add some more. Scoop it up. I'm not wearing gloves this morning. Wish I had. I already have plaster on my hands. But it's okay. Mornings don't seem to be quite as bad as evening getting plaster on my hands for some reason. It's because I've been working all day and a day wears on, the skin dries out more during the course of the day. Okay, now this is nice and thick here at the back. And you can see the difference. Alright? Now, let's bring this up like so. We have to come over a little more onto the existing mold wall. And this time I didn't mix up quite enough plaster, I think. If it's not one, it's the other. If it's not one, it's the other. There we go. All right. Oh, there we are. That's great. That's good. That's real good right there. That's nice. Very cool. Flatten out the top. Nice and even. Like so. And again, even this all off. Bring it down. And then from the bottom we push up. And we go along like so. And now she's really starting to set, and that's fine. And that's fine. Right there. A little bit of an air pocket. I want to get that out of that little crack will break and fall off. There we go. Again, push up. That's nice and even. That's really nice and even. Add a little more to the front here. And then we're going to call this mold section done. Just keep turning it and working it, the plaster onto itself. You'll get it out of the container. You can create a little strip of it with the knife. A little strip that you need. And when you've got that made and it's on the knife, simply put it into place like so. Blend it in. Now I do have my squirt bottle here today. So, a little squirt of water. Just kind of activates the plaster again. Re-energizes it. Go along the bottom. Come up, draw it up off the clay. Go towards the top. And then here, clean a knife. Hit it with some water to allow it to flow and smooth the clay. Just like so. Just smooth this. A little shaping, a little tenderizing. Down you go. And the very last of the plaster, and do the same thing. Activate it with a little bit of water that's on the tip of the knife. Come along here, fill this in. Just like so. A little spritz of water. A little spritz of water. There's my New York. There's my New York. Love it. And we shape. Like so. And I like to give a little squirt of water over the entire body of the plaster. Go along the sides. Make sure I lift any parts that are sagging down on the clay. The other thing about spraying the plaster with water a little bit is it helps to reactivate it so you can pack it all together and compact it and get rid of any little air holes and air pockets that might be in the plaster itself. Like so, we go along. Another reason you want to smooth plaster as much as possible when you're handling it with your bare hands, it's a lot easier to handle plaster that's smooth than to handle plaster that's jagged. And even for a waste mold or disposable mold, even the plaster jacket should be easy for your hands to hold and maintain. And you can see what the Vaseline has done. It's allowing the water to just bead up on the plaster here. Okay? But this side is finished. Now I'll let this set for the entire day before I flip it over to clean out the clay from the bottom. And the way I'll flip it over is because these are poking out like so, I'll put this on a pile of hemp fibers in a plastic container and just hold it all snug. But that's a part that's to come. That's a part to come. We're not there yet. But for now, we'll let this dry for the day.